Dear members and guests, welcome to our joint webinar, Reforms to UAE Foreign Investment Rules and the UAE's Companies Law. The BBC is very pleased to organize this event with the Embassy and Consulate of the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the Netherlands Business Council. These reforms are major change, not only for the country, but also for foreign investments and companies operating in the UAE. We wish, of course, the best for the UAE and hope that these reforms will help the country to give a great future, not only for its citizens, but also for all residents. Today, we will mainly focus on the potential impacts for businesses in the UAE, and for that, we have great speakers. It is my pleasure to welcome Raya Abu Galal, founder of Manal Legal, and Patricia Hart van Rooyen, Managing Director, Intertrust UAE. As moderator, we have with us Emmanuel Ettringer, Consul Head of Office at Arend en Meddenacht in Dubai. Before starting, I have a few administrative matters. First of all, we have put you all on mute. Please remain muted during the whole presentation. And may I ask you to address your question directly to Emmanuel by writing them on the chat function. Emmanuel will ask them for you at the end of the presentation. Raya, Patricia, thank you very much for being with us today. Patricia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for inviting me. Happy to join this forum. And allow me to take you through the current landscape before Raya will embark into the more the technicalities of the proposed UAE companies law. Yeah, that's my slide. Thank you so much. So allow me to paint the landscape. This is the current situation in the UAE. As you'll see, if you want to start a business, you have multiple options. You can set up a company on mainland. You can go to a free zone, where it be a commercial free zone or a financial free zone. And you also have an offshore option. And to start with the latter, going Arabic style from right to left on your screen, offshore companies are legal business entities that are set up with the intention to operate outside of the registered jurisdiction or outside of the location of the ultimate beneficial ownership. So there are many reasons to register an offshore company. Mostly it is a gateway to international market expansion, access stable and business-friendly legal system, and it has a more flexible regulatory regime. In the UAE currently, we have two offshore options, RAK ICC and JAVSA. These are the principal jurisdictions, and they're both tax-free jurisdictions that levy no income tax or corporate tax, and they permit 100% foreign ownership. Your business can be conducted outside the UAE only. JAVSA and RAK ICC, they pair their a dual license with RAK EZ to import and trade through a distributor in the UAE. Now, the UAE offshore company is not exactly the same as a free zone company. So I'll explain the difference. The local company law, both RAK and JAVSA companies, they must have an appointed and approved registered agent. Those agents are registered with the authority of RAK ICC and JAVSA. JAVSA, the free zone itself, was created in 1985, but only in 2003 did the Jebel Ali Free Zone Authority, in conjunction with the Dubai government, introduce the offshore company. And the key features are that you have a minimum of 1 shareholder is required, you have corporate shareholders permitted, 2 directors are required, corporate directors are not permitted, 100% foreign ownership, as I said. Local real estate ownership is available. You can have shares in local companies. You can have a local bank account. And there's annual reporting. But that's probably goes without saying for most of the entities. Now, if you look at RAK ICC in 2006, the Ras Al Khaimah government launched the international company structure known as the RAK Offshore Company. This is regulated under the Ras Al Khaimah Free Trade Zone Authority International Companies Regulations 2006. As you see on the slide, on the third line I have put in what main company law is applicable to that jurisdiction. Key features of the RAC offshore company is also a minimum of one shareholder. Corporate shareholders are permitted. They have 100% foreign ownership. You can own shares in local companies. Local bank account is available. And RAC ICC is renowned for its fast incorporation. Moving to the free zones, there are two types of free zones, commercial free zones and financial free zones. On the commercial free zone side, there are approximately 45 different free zones in the UAE at this moment. The first ever free zone opened in the 1980s, and it set the framework for many that followed. Most well-known free zones include Fujairah, Ajman, the DMCC, Dubai Multi-Commodity Center, Dubai Media City, TCOM, Jebel Ali, DIFC, Ras Al Khaimah, Masdar, and Kizat. They're also known as free trade zones, and this is essential because economic areas where the goods and the services can be traded, usually at a preferential tax rate and a customs rate. That was the intention of setting up the free zones. Over the years, the UAE free zones have evolved, and they're very attractive when you want to set up a business. It's very easy to set up, and perhaps the most compelling reason is that the tax regime. Setting up in a free zone, you benefit of a zero corporate and personal tax regime, and your business is also exempt from VAT, which currently stands at 5%. And you're also exempt from import and export tax, and you can trade with no currency restrictions. Free zones are usually chosen by the activity that the company is going to provide. So you first look at what business activity would you want to have, and then you will go and see which free zone is most suitable for yourself. Quickly touching upon the financial free zones. We have two currently. In 2004, the DIFC, the Dubai International Financial Center, was set up, and in 2013, Abu Dhabi Global Market followed. Now, both ADGM and DIFC are welcoming a range of financial and professional business activities, but also non-financial activities. Most of the regulated activities are in ADGM and DIFC as well. They have three main bodies, and so they're differently structured than the commercial free zone, who have their own rules and regulations, which is supplemented by the UAE Commercial Companies Law. And they have an independent financial services regulator, registrar, and the courts. The ADGM's approach is slightly different from the DIFC in the sense that it adopts specified English laws related to jurisprudence and common law by way of regulation. In 2018, we saw a massive overhaul of the DIFC companies law, and ADGM followed a bit after, and that brings me to the mainland, because there we have the most recent overhaul of law being announced. Now, I should actually say currently, what the situation is that a mainland company is a legal entity that can operate inside and outside the country without restrictions. In comparison to a free zone, no 100% foreign ownership is allowed. You have to have a 51% local partner, which is a natural person, or a corporate body owning 51% of the shares, and the 49% of the shares can then be owned by the business entrepreneur. There are licenses in three categories, and so commercial license, industrial license, which require the local partner. Professional licenses do not require a local partner. Now, Raya will take you through the main points of the new proposed companies law, which will bring us 100% foreign ownership for a mainland entity.
Thank you, Patricia. Raya, over to you. Let us hear what the future brings.
Okay, thank you, Patricia, and thank you for the Benelux Business Group for the invites. So I will go through the implementation of the companies law amendments and its impact on current onshore businesses in the UAE. So the decree law to the amendments of the companies law was issued in the official law gazette in late November 2020, with a publication date of 30 September 2020, containing a significant number of important legislative developments. And it also repealed the Foreign Directive Investment Act, which was issued in 2018. So the decree law to the amendments of companies law came into force in January 2021. However, certain changes in the law, which I shall discuss shortly, will only come into force on 30 March 2021. So significant changes to the law is the abolishment of Article 10 that was previously required a UAE national shareholder in a limited liability company. Now, although this article is now been abolished by the decree law, UAE national shareholding participation is not entirely abolished for limited liability companies. So certain restrictions might be still placed on current and new businesses that carry out special impact activity. And I will come shortly to discuss the special impact activity. So the restrictions shall be decided by the Department of Economic Development. Also, we are awaiting further regulations to be issued on this subject matter. Also, another significant change in the law is the removal of the requirement for a branch agent, or often so-called in practice a local sponsor, which is referred to in Article 329 of the Companies Law. This article is now being replaced with Article 6 of the law, of the new amendment law. This article in particular is interesting for current foreign branch offices, which helps current businesses to save costs, and also removes the burden for new foreign branches to find a branch agent. Both of these changes discussed will only come into force on 30 March 2021. We're also awaiting to obtain further clarity on this matter from the local authorities to see how this issue will actually be implemented in practice and which approvals will be required for to complete such transaction. In short term, the implications of the changes to the foreign ownership will remain unclear until Article 10 of the law regarding the removal of the local shareholder will take effect and further regulations have been issued. Meanwhile, current businesses can review their existing corporate agreements and obligations with their local partners and strategize their businesses. Also, businesses can assess if their national UAE partner is an active shareholder in the business or is acting as a nominee shareholder. Finally, other changes were made to the companies law, which I shall only mention briefly, is on the corporate governance side. Few amendments made to the General Assembly request format, which is now reduced from shareholders representing 25% to 10% who can request for the General Assembly. And invitation to the board meetings replaced from 21 days to 15 days. And quorum for the first assembly meeting replaced from 75% to 50%. And any shareholder can now apply for an emergency capital increase, which was not the case prior to these amendments. Finally, the parties must provide in their Article of Association means of settling their disputes. The timeline to adjust the Article of Association or Memorandum of Association for the corporate governance changes is by 2nd of January 2022. And failure to do so, there will be fines imposed on this matter. Other changes to the companies law were also introduced, which I shall not cover today, are related to IPOs, mergers and acquisitions, and private and public joint stock companies. So the decree refers to a formation of a committee to determine and advise on the list of strategic impact activities. A formation of a committee shall be set up in due course, date not announced yet. However, this committee shall consist of members from each Department of Economic Development from each emirate. And what we understood is that each emirate can make their own decision in terms of the local shareholding requirements and decisions how companies can set up on the licensing fees. So the committee shall have the power also to issue decisions on the contribution of UAE nationals to the capital of the companies and also advise the Council of Ministers on the strategic activities list. What are these strategic impact activities? Now, companies carrying out on activities where the amendments law refers to with strategic impact will continue to be subject to restrictions on foreign ownership. It is, however, not clear yet what type of restrictions will be imposed. We foresee that restriction may be imposed on possible share capital of the company, managerial positions being held by local UAE nationals, or lower local shareholder participation, or higher licensing fees. It's important to note that Article 5 of the amendment law states that no amendments must be made to the Article of Association of an existing company with a UAE national shareholder if the company carries out on strategic impact activities without the consent of the competent licensing authority, which is the Department of Economic Development. In my opinion, I believe that activities such as oil and gas, transport, infrastructure, education might fall under the strategic impact activities. Now, there are exempted business activities, which is good news for international businesses and investors that do not fall under the strategic impact activity list, that will have no restrictions in terms of UAE national participation in their businesses or other restrictions that may be placed. This means that a foreign investor can set up a limited liability company 100% owned by their company or by a foreign individual. So what we foresee is that exempted activities may be businesses that provide services and consultancies, and it could be also, let's say, services to oil and gas companies or consultancies to any of these strategic impact activities. And that was it. I guess my 5 minutes is over.
Yes, thank you very much, Raya. That gave a good chance to our audience to send in some questions. I will, of course, not pass on those very, how should I say, specific questions we're receiving from the audience, and I will allow myself to divert those directly to our speakers. But in general, one of the questions that is coming back is, so why will we still have free zones? What's the benefit of the free zones going forward if you can now on mainland do the same than what you are basically doing today, at least from a shareholding point of view in mainland? I don't know if Patricia or Raya, one of you wants to answer that.
I think Patricia, maybe.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah. Right now, because there's the law has been announced and it's not effective yet. So at this moment, you would still look at the benefits of a free zone being the tax regime. So you don't have any taxes, you'll be exempt from VAT, and no import and export tax as well. And you can trade without currency restrictions. So those are the main attractions from a free zone. And also, what I would like to point out is on my slide, as you saw, most free zones have their own rules and regulations. They are complemented by the commercial companies commercial law, excuse me, but they also have their own law frame in place. And so if you want to have more security in terms of how your business will be seen, what is the impact of any distribution, any disputes, arbitration, definitely I think the free zones will still have their attraction. On the other hand, mainland may be a cost, from a cost perspective, may be the more economical option. Free zones historically have quite a high lease price, whereas on mainland you can find leases that are a bit more economical. So it will also very much depend on your activity. As Raya already pointed out, these strategic impact activities that are listed, they will be exempt, or they will be excluded from the 100% foreign ownership. So it depends really what your activity will be doing and where you want to conduct your business and what type of business you would like to conduct.
Thanks, Patricia. The strategic impact activities are letting our audience a bit struggling to understand what that would be. So I'm having questions saying, would petroleum, would nuclear, will Barakat be part of that? I think, Raya, that's just best guess at the moment. But would you expect these kind of activities to be indeed covered?
Yes, I think there will be. I think that's just my opinion, that they will be part of the strategic impact list. But I think if a company will provide services to these type of, as a subcontractor, I think the subcontractor will be allowed to set up without having a UAE national shareholder. But of course, there will be other restrictions that may be in place, like I mentioned earlier. But
yeah.
But as a main contractor, I think that will be seen as a strategic impact.
Okay. So if I have a client tomorrow, a contact tomorrow who wants to set up shop in the UAE, now immediately, where do we take him? Patricia, I'll take him to see you, and then where will you take him?
Okay, I have three initial questions always for our clients, and that is activity, cost, and other requirements. So activity comes down to what do you want to do? And where do you want to conduct your business? Do you need a warehouse? Do you need port access? Can you make do with a flexi desk arrangement? Do you have financial activity planned? Will it be a regulated activity? So all that determines which free zone or mainland or offshore type of option is beneficial for you. Then a cost perspective, if you've decided on a free zone, for instance, you have, like I said, approximately 45 free zones to choose from. The choice more or less is limited by element number one being the activity. But if you have like a consultancy activity or a trading activity, which is allowed in multiple free zones, then maybe you would have to look at your free zone requirements. So do you need a large outfit warehouse, or can you make do with smaller? Is it important to be in Dubai, or do you need to be in Abu Dhabi, or can you be in the Northern Emirates? So from a cost perspective, that's element number two. Element number three is your other requirements. Do you need share classes? Do you have visa requirements? Are you interested in under which law you're going to operate? What is your time frame? Some free zones are very quick. They're completely online, lovely client portals. And with some, you just need to take all your paperwork down with stamps and to a desk, and you hope in the hope that you'll find someone sitting behind that desk when you arrive. So it all depends on these elements. There's no one solution, one fits all. Unfortunately.
Sorry, can I just add something in addition to what
Please.
I mentioned? I think it's also very important is to also ask the client to whom they are bidding, because some of the clients are bidding for a specific emirate. So, and then you have conditions with the bid where you have to have, let's say, an Abu Dhabi or a Dubai license, and it must be an onshore license rather than offshore setup. So that's also a important aspect for clients who are specifically targeting a specific project that they are bidding for a setup of a year or two to work on a project as a branch office. I think that's important. But I think just to add also, I've already received some inquiries. Shall we wait until the strategic impact list will be issued on? We don't know actually if it's going to be issued on 30, March 2021. We hope so, but so again, like Patricia mentioned, how quick do they need the setup? Because I rather than wait until at least March to have more clarity on the list that will be issued, rather than jumping into a setup and trying to find a local sponsor or a local shareholder, which can be often time consuming for companies who have no knowledge about this region, and etc. So I think if clients and companies can wait at least for another month, I think we will have more clarity. That's
Thanks, Raya. And if I may ask, what is happening with the existing companies that do have a local sponsor? You know, is there an upgrade or downgrade? I don't know, into a 100% foreignly owned company? Is it all down to negotiating your sponsor out in a certain way? What do you see there, and what do you expect the rules will be, which you have to you know, incorporate a new company in order to achieve that, or is there an adaptation of the existing companies possible?
Yeah, I think you can keep your own company. I think there will be a share transfer transaction if the share transfer transaction will be permitted by the Department of Economic Development. Of course, the law mentions that you must obtain an approval for that. This was always the case, but now even specifically with the new amendments, I think existing companies can review their relationship with their current relationship with their local partners. It depends. I mean, some companies have entered with a shareholders agreement that the local partner is an active partner. So it's not necessarily that all the foreign companies are going to say, okay, I want to get out of this relationship. Also, we don't know what the shareholders agreement has covered. If they have shareholders agreement on the side, we don't know if it covers compensation. If there is a share transfer, you know, there are other things, legal technicalities that companies should currently review and perhaps have you know, a discussion with their partner on this subject matter. But at this stage, there's little that they can do because there is no committee set up yet by the Department of Economic Development that we, even as lawyers, can go and discuss this matter with the authorities. But again, you can do some internal strategies. You can do you know, review your corporate documents and see, you know, how you can try and you know, formalize the relationship if you want to get out of this relationship again. Not all the companies want to offer that.
Do you see, and I think that's a question for both of you, do you see already, has this announcement already prompted a number of requests for either new companies to be set up or existing ones to be changed, or for foreign investors to really come into the country? Do you see already an impact of these announcements on your respective businesses?
Yes, definitely. I must say that we're actually surprised by the high volume of requests that we've received during the month of January. After the storm of economic substance in 2020, which ended with a bang on the 31st of December, where the extension of the submitters period was announced. We thought businesses were just going to sit and wait and see how the developments would go, but actually we see a very active landscape. Lots of companies are setting up, and companies are setting up in such a way that they, and I think that's clever. If you have current contracts, if you have a business that you would like to start, they start off small. Fintech starts small. You have freelance entrepreneurs that are starting up at the moment with low cost options, and they will then materialize or not, and they can then materialize either into full-fledged free zone, or they can opt for a dual license, or they can go mainland when their activity and the time permits. So definitely an influx of business, a heightened interest from various industries.
Okay.
Happy to say so.
Raya, same on your side?
Yes, same. Yes, I mean, I have inquiries about, of course, about, you know, how should they go on, especially when we're talking about branch offices, because with the branch office it's quite attractive. You know, not doing the administrative work and even trying to find a local sponsor, which is can be often, you know, time consuming. So we've definitely seen inquiries. I think there is a positive side about these, you know, changes that are going to come in place.
Yeah, it also indicates that the UAE is serious about their business. As they say, they would like to remain to have a seat at the international table, And they want to comply, they want to cooperate, and they want to have their regime in place. And we've seen that throughout. I think really it started in 2018 with the company's law overhaul, and then constant new laws are being introduced, and all for the benefit of entrepreneurs, for the benefit of people who are residing in the UAE. And I think that is the major driver also behind this new decree, to stimulate the business and the business environment in the UAE.
Raya, you've mentioned that there's the branch office, the branch or the rep office might be a good solution going forward. Are there any risk or any consideration that should be considered compared to an LLC? Are there any substance requirements that we will be seeing coming maybe as a side effect of allowing more or complete FDI in companies?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at both structures, they are entirely different. And a branch office have restriction in carrying out certain activities. You're tied to your mother company. So whatever your mother company is carrying out, let's say in the Netherlands or in the UK, you have to carry the same activities as your mother company. So you're quite restricted and with your services, and you cannot do trading with the branch office. But with an LLC, you can have various of activities. You can increase your activities as you wish. You're independent then from your branch office, financially independent. And tax-wise, I'm not a tax expert, so please don't quote me on this, but tax-wise, what I understood is for certain foreign companies, it's better to have a limited liability company than a branch office, which is financially tied to your parent company. But so you have to look at this issue from different, different matter. Also, a branch office is usually set up only for a few years. Now, I have seen, of course, I have clients that have branches offices that have been set up now for many years, but I've also had branch offices that were set up for a specific project to be carried out as a subcontractor that they bid for the Abu Dhabi government or the Dubai government for specific amounts of time, and they've closed the branch after a couple of years. Or you could be thinking about closing the branch and expanding in a different way into a limited liability company. So it depends, with a branch, of course, you can't have a local share, you can't have a shareholder. With a limited liability company, you can. It depends what type of activities you're going to be carrying out in order to assess this specific structure.
Yeah, it's a different animal.
Yeah.
And what you say, Raya, is very important that people understand, is that you are limited to what your mother company is having as an activity on its license. You can do less, but you can never do more.
And it's also an expensive transaction, actually, a branch. You have to, any legal document that you have to issue the legal document will have to be notarized and legalized. It takes time. It's costly to arrive to the UAE. With the LLC, you could give someone the power of attorney. If you are a foreign shareholder who've entered into an LLC to carry out the transactions, on the ground. So I think practically, if you're thinking of setting up for many years, and this is going to be your, business hub, let's say, for the region, I think a limited liability company is a suitable option, and especially if we're going to see those changes coming up, with lifting the restrictions of having a certain percentage of, or no percentage of a UAE national shareholder. You could set up a limited liability company singly. You can own this as an individual or a company. So that's also a new structure which will become quite popular, I think, for foreign investors setting up in the onshore.
Thank you. Apart from the form of companies, of course, there's also the possible licenses. I'm getting some questions about ADGM and DIFC. Patricia, maybe that's one for you. Sure. I don't know if it's one for this forum, but just asking, what are the differences? The location, but is there anything else you want to say 2 words on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, so it's always the question, who's number one, who's number two, if you
yeah,
have
it depends
two.
on which side of the border you sit on.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, so luckily we have offices in both, so I'm impartial.
You're impartial, yeah.
But no, there is definitely a difference. It also comes down to what do you want to do. So historically, the DIFC did not have much of a holding regime. They do now with the prescribed company, but it's more restricted than, for instance, plain vanilla holding that you can do in the ADGM. Both financial free zones have a foundation regime. It's different though. It's also used for different purposes. What we see in practice is that the DIFC is used for private wealth management. So holding of shares for minors, for instance, in family capital, holding of real estate, residential real estate that is, also holding of a siloed of industries and where the ultimate beneficial owner is active in, and then having a structure so that whenever something, God forbid, happens, the whole imperium will carry on as is, and it's not dependent on the life of the patriarch usually. Whereas ADGM is more business-minded foundation. Foundations there are used for securitization, ring fencing. It has a more of a financial outlook, I should say. It's the same. The cost is more or less the same. The speed is also more or less the same. So yeah,
Being very
depends.
politically correct here.
Yeah, I mean, they both have MOUs, so we still would say that if you hold property in Dubai, go for a DIFC. If you hold a property in Abu Dhabi, go for Abu Dhabi Foundation. I must not forget RAC ICC, by the way. They have a great regime for foundations as well. And this is used for a property holding mostly, as we currently see. So, but yeah, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, they have a bit of a different type of law, whereas Abu Dhabi has incorporated the common law. Dubai has more tailor-made the common law. So you should, yeah, again, depends on your requirements.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Maybe just a last one for Raya. Are you expecting that in the next months you will see a lot of companies moving from the free zones to the mainland, or I guess the other way around, maybe not, but
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think there are a lot of, the free zones still have their special status. Patricia already mentioned in terms of the governing clause, in terms of the strategic places that are placed. Also, most of the free zones have been set up for not to work. Actually, they shouldn't be, working in mainland, but so they've been set up as a for being in a strategic place in the region and covering also regional hubs. So I don't think we're gonna. That's just my view. I'm not. I think what's going to happen that few of the free zone companies are going to set up a separate entity aside of the free zone company, one in mainland. That's 2 requests I've already received. They just want to see that they're already covering, for example, the region around the UAE, and they will set up a second entity, let's say inside Abu Dhabi, and where they could cover the Abu Dhabi market. So that's something that we could see, the companies after it. But I don't think we're going to see a lot of these flats, closing down in the free zones and open. That's just my view. I don't see this happening.
Okay. Patricia, I don't know if you have a different view, or if we
I think it's the same. Yes, definitely. Also, because you must understand, free zone companies are active companies. They are going concerns. So what do you do with all your contracts? You can't just from one day to another say, oh, I'll just have a different contracting party for you. So this must really be well thought of and well planned before you take the leap. Definitely we will see some companies set up in mainland. but maybe with an overlap period of holding on to their free zone companies to make sure that it is a smooth transition, especially for their contracting parties.
Okay, well, thank you very much, ladies. I think exciting times to come for for you and for all of us, looking at what is going to be decided, what it is going to mean for the company laws, I would say, in the UAE. And I probably can take a safe bet that we should have a repetition of this webinar in about a year's time, and that you would give us the insight at that time of the changes that have come into force and of the opportunities that this might be bringing to our audience. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you.
And we will share your details. If anybody would like to have all the details from Patricia and Raya, we will share them with all the public that attended today, if they have any other questions to you. And thank you for making all this very clear to us, these new rules.